experience life. Yes. I don't know why. So intoxicated, man. You don't know why you do what you do. Yes. Be in love, breaking the law.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Life of a Car Guy podcast. I'm your host, Pete the Car Guy. Thank y'all for joining me on such a beautiful Saturday today. It's blazing today, but it's still a beautiful day. We're going to bring the fun anyway. So without further ado, you know how we do. Let's go ahead and kick this off with the What's Going On segment. Talk to me so you can see what's going on. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? All right, guys. I bet you noticed something a little different this time around, right? Guess what we got? Yes, we finally got the first shirt and hat for the Life of a Car Guy. Check this out right here. Check it out. Check it out. Yes, they came in last week because of the holiday weekend. We did not do a recording, but I couldn't wait to debut these for you guys today. We've got the logo right here, Life of the Car Guy. We've got the inscription on the hat. And wait a minute, a little bonus here. We've also got the logo that you guys have seen on the podcast thumbnails and everything. So we are official. We've got our inventory in, and I'm going to also work on a slight variation with a different color for two other golf shirts. I think I'm going to do blue and maybe white, and I might introduce a black one as well too. But I could not wait to debut it. You see me right here, so we are now fully represented everywhere we go. Life of a Car Guy, we are on and we are live. So I cannot thank R&R Embroidery enough for this first rendition of our apparel. Thank you very, very much for this. And thanks to Mr. Sean Hicks for the recommendation. And I'm just so ecstatic about it, guys. So I cannot wait to see more of these come. And for those that want a hat and a shirt in this color and this type, of course, the hat, please let me know. Email me at thelifeofacarguy@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to get those out. I'll have some pricing for you hopefully soon. And then once we get the website updated and everything going, you'll be able to buy directly from there. But I cannot wait to share these with you guys, and I'm so excited about it. So thank you guys very much for being patient with this. But we are official now, so we are ready to roll. I've been talking with my boss, my beautiful wife, and we're thinking about maybe doing some t-shirts for individuals as well. So we're going to work up something with that hopefully soon, within the next month or so, and hopefully we can have a variation of that to share with you guys too. All right. So thank you guys very much for being patient with me. Like I said, I'm so ecstatic. So when we go out to the car shows and we go to the various things, and especially doing the Take the Wheel segments, we will be wonderfully and sophisticatedly represented with Life of a Car Guy. So thank you so much for that. And thank you guys for continuing to check out the website at www.lifeofacarguy.com. Once again, be sure to check out the blogs and the videos there as well too. All right. Now, let's kick this off with the industry in the streets news. So, another nostalgic vehicle is making a comeback. That's right. Honda is bringing back the Element. Now, for those of you who don't remember the Element, this was the box car that had the suicide doors. So here's an example of it right here. And this was the first generation body style. And matter of fact, Honda did not do another generation of this except for like a refresher. And the Element lasted for about 10 years before it was canceled 18 years ago. But they are going to bring it back. They're going to bring it back for 2029. So we got about 3 years or so, 2 or 3 years before we see it out on the roads again. Now, here's some interesting news. They're going to bring it back in the form of a hybrid as opposed to just a gasoline engine. So Honda has kind of shut down a big majority of their EV production to kind of focus fully on the hybrid version of their business models now. So we'll see how that goes. I'm looking forward to seeing this and seeing what the model is going to look like. From what I understand, it's going to be positioned to kind of be a rival or in competition with the Ford Bronco Sport. So kind of have that boxy look and that fun kind of feel and that utility kind of use as well too. For those of you that remember the Element, they had the rubber floor, and I think if I remember correctly, when I was selling them at Honda over here in on the west side of Richmond, they you could spray the floor out with a hose easily without having to worry about anything. And the second row, the back seats, you could take them out all together and have like a full cargo kind of setup. So it was a pretty nifty looking kind of vehicle. They did come in four-wheel drive, and then they introduced them in a front-wheel drive as well too. So more about four-wheel and front-wheel drive shortly. I'm going to break out something else with that and a little bit later. But I'm looking forward to this. But I got to be honest with you, my professional and personal opinion, a little hesitant. And let me tell you why. Honda back in the late 90s up through the early to mid 2000s, they were known for kind of creating these uniquely niche vehicles like the Prelude, the Element, the S2000. I remember the Honda Del Sol with the removable top, so you could go straight cabriolet or, just take the hard top off altogether and you could store it into the vehicle. Those were vehicles that were a lot of fun and really showed Honda's creative side. And they really created a lot of cult followings when they did that. But over the years, like in the late 2000s and like early 2010s, they abandoned that creative side to kind of go a little bit more of the suburban lifestyle, run of the mill kind of, just plain vanilla kind of style. And I think, in my personal opinion, kind of alienated a lot of their buyers. Now, they did make some headway in bringing some options back, like the Prelude, which came back in a hybrid. And they're also looking to introduce the Element in a hybrid as well. The hybrid functionality and doing this and mixing it with the nostalgic nameplates, I don't have a problem with that. The biggest thing I have a problem with is the price points. So for those of you who have owned Preludes, and I saw the first Prelude back in the early 80s, and then of course they had the latest design that was canceled back in the mid to late 90s. Those were really fun vehicles, and you could do a whole lot with them. You could accessorize them, you could shape them and brand and make them and mold them however you wanted. And that kind of was one of the biggest pulls to Honda's creativity. But when you introduce these newer models, they're kind of in very high price points. Like for example, the Prelude, if I remember correctly, I saw the base model was introduced like in the upper 30s to low 40s. And I gotta tell you, for the nostalgic individuals that were looking at those vehicles, that's really outside the price point even now compared to modern spending times with respect to being able to afford those. So, Honda, I think, has kind of pulled back a lot of the production of the Prelude because sales have not been as great. I just hope that with the Element that they will price these, and make them competitive and effective. So for individuals who have owned the Elements and have wanted to see the recreation of the new version, I hope they make them affordable and they put them in a competitive price point so that people can really enjoy them. Now, from what I read, Honda is going to their projected sales for when they bring them out in 2029 is going to be right around 100,000, which is ironically placed very close to what the Ford Bronco Sports sales projections were back in 2025. And if I'm not mistaken, they were just off by maybe like 25 or 30,000 units. So they're really going to try to make this a very strong direct competitor to the Ford Bronco Sport. So we will see. I'm looking forward to it. I hope that Honda won't let us down. I hope they will make it into a decent price point to where people can really afford them and enjoy them. Okay. So, at any rate, I just wanted to kind of touch on another thing too, and I think everybody has seen this since gas prices have gone up and a lot of pricing has kind of affected the auto industry with respect to the electric vehicles. You're seeing a lot of companies kind of abandon that process now. One of the things that I loved about Toyota was that they stayed true to their brand and their overall vision of what a quality vehicle should be. Now, I was a little disappointed that they nixed the eight cylinder in their vehicles, like the Land Cruiser as well as the Sequoia and the Tundra, of course, and they made the Turbo V6. Now, efficiently wise, they're still viable vehicles and they still have a decent tow capacity, but it was something about that V8 that just made whatever you were towing, sustainable and, sure-footed. So, with the respect to them going to a hybrid focus, it's really kept them in the running, if not in the lead, for total sales for automotive vehicles, of course. So, I'm hoping that Honda will take a page from Toyota on this and going the hybrid way, but bring some of that creativity back. So, we shall see. All right, fingers crossed on that. All right. So, the topic of discussion today, I had to go back to my roots on this one. And when I think back to when I was a little kid and when I first envision the car guy life, right? It really, really started with toys, right? So, I mean, obviously, when I was 3 years old, I couldn't drive a car, I couldn't operate a vehicle. That doesn't make sense. But I always pretended like I could. So, the next best thing that I could get to was my toys. And this segment is going to talk about my RC roots or remote controlled or electric car roots, and I'm going to talk about my first vehicle acquisitions when I was a kid. All right. Now, for some of these, I'm going to bring back some crazy memories, and I'm sure this is going to go down memory lane for all of you car guys and gals as well. So, I've got some options that I wanted to share with you what my parents blessed me with when I was an adolescent, and I can't wait to share them with you. So, how many of you remember this option here? Now, this was called the Animal. Now, for those of you who may or may not have seen these were battery operated cars that had the little claws come out retractably whenever it faced trouble. All right. So I remember when I was a little kid, I used to watch the commercials on Saturday morning along with the cartoons, and I used to see these battery operated toys, the Animal. So the Animal made three different versions. They made one that kind of looked like the Gravedigger, which was a monster truck back in the day. Then they made one that kind of looked like one of the Toyota Land Cruisers, the old school Land Cruisers. That was kind of a reddish color. And my buddy Jarvis, who's been on the Take the Wheel segment, he had the Animal first. And I was looking, I was like, oh man, I gotta have it. But I didn't want to have the exact same one that Jarvis had. So I bought the yellow one that looked like a Pontiac Trans Am. So that one was pretty cool. And I remember the first time I got it, it was on Christmas Day when I was in second grade, back in I want to say 84, 85. And we had snow out on the ground up where I used to live up in Copper Hill. And I remember putting my batteries in and putting it out on the snow and just seeing what it would look like. Fortunately, the snow was kind of packed, so I was able to run over top of it. But I had to like put things in the way so the claws could kind of pop up, and the claws would just kind of come up and just kind of dig its way through stuff. Man, I tell you, it was so much fun when I owned my toys. This is where I first found out about batteries, right? So this used to take, I think, C batteries back in the day. So I had to get four C batteries to put them in, and I would turn the little switch on and just let it run. And whenever it would encounter trouble, so to speak, or something to climb over, that's when the claws would come right out and then try to grab and grapple and try to pull itself over and out. So it's one of my first controlled electronic cars that I owned, and it was so cool. Now, when we talk about radio controlled vehicles, right, we're talking about these battery operated options where you control them with a control, either like a handheld one like this, or what you call the trigger control with the little knob that allowed you to kind of directly turn either way. So I can't wait to show you this one. This one was called the Tyco RC Bandit 9.6 volt turbocharged vehicle from Tyco. Now, this one was based off the Nissan D21 or the hard body platform for the Nissan truck back in the mid to late 80s. Now, my dad, I remember when he bought his red Nissan truck and it had what was called the King cab. Now, this cab was anything but king, all right? It was like royal jester, all right? What I mean by that was the seats were just kind of really, really small, And me and my younger brother, we would sit in the back seat because obviously neither one of us were old enough to sit in the front. So there would be like facing right in front of each other, and we'd have to squeeze our legs in together and sit like this, just kind of boxed in with a little lap strap seat belt. And the seats would kind of fold down from the sides of the ends of the truck. And the windows in the back, they used to vent. So instead of rolling down or opening, you'd have to pop this little clip and pop it out. And that's how we got fresh air in the back. And that was it. Right. So that's all we had with that. And obviously, I wanted to be like my dad. So that's why I got this little Nissan D21 style vehicle. This was literally the option I had, the color, the wheels, everything. And the radio control was that trigger control where you'd squeeze the trigger and it would go forward and you go reverse to go backwards. And then the wheel that was on the remote control would turn either way. This would be for right, this would be for left. And I remember I had to teach myself that because I was trying to learn in the kitchen and trying to go around all these obstacles, and didn't make my mom real happy when I would run into the little the legs of the dinner table or hit somebody's feet as they were walking by. So I really had to hone my skills, so to speak, to make sure I knew what I was doing to drive it. I remember back when we moved down into the city and I was racing it out on the street and I didn't see this car come, and right in front of my house this car ran over my little remote control car, and I just remember my face dropped and I was like, "Oh my god." And I remember just picking it up. I thought I could repair it or fix it, but it was done. It was gone. So no more Bandit, unfortunately. But anyway, it was really fun to drive and I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of just, really fun. Now, the next one I'm going to show you, this is one that I got from Radio Shack as a Christmas gift. Now, how many of you remember going into Radio Shack in the malls or whatever, and you see all sorts of electronics like CB radios, little wires, tools, pieces to fix your electrical sockets and all that. But they had like a little section for us where they had all the toys and little robots and whatever. So I remember getting this for Christmas one year. This was called the Turbo Buggy Red Arrow. And one of the things I remember about this vehicle was that it had a pretty large radio control unit. It was about as big as this, and the wire was like going way out up to here. But it had little alignment set up so where you could align the wheels to make sure it would turn a certain way and make sure it would kind of be straight. With this vehicle, one of the things that I remembered, it didn't have like the actual metal wire to control. It had like this little black, just limp wire, but you had to put like a little straw tube in it to make the wire stand up. So I don't know if you can see in this picture here, but right about here is that little plastic tube or straw. That's what held the wire up and in place while you were manipulating and driving the vehicle. And I remember actually in high school, I actually took a science fair project and put it together with remote control cars. And I remember borrowing Jarvis's remote control car. He had one that was I was constructed from one of the little hobby stores. It cost them like 350 bucks. And I just remember doing a science fair project with this and a friend of mine named Leroy Garrison. We got to partner up and do this. And we actually won first place in the science fair for our school. And we went to the city districts. We didn't place in the cities, but we won at our school, which was really, really cool. But I just remember, that fascination with cars kind of starting and building with owning the remote control vehicles and just being able to control them and manipulate them and kind of let them go out all out in the parking lots and all that kind of stuff. And it was just so much fun. The reason why I'm bringing this topic up for today is that we took a vacation for a family reunion down in Raleigh last weekend. And we happened upon a store in one of the malls in Raleigh, and it was called Hobby RC Park by Razo or Razzo. And I told the guys when I went to the store that I met and kind of made connections with that I would drop a little what do you call it, like a little hello or what's up on here. But I wanted to present their business card. If you guys can see it, sorry the reflection is a little bad. It's called Harvey AC Park by Razo, and it's in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I forgot the name of the mall that it was in, but it's one of the bigger malls that was kind of like in the main area, main suburban area. But I'm going to drop their email as well as their website, razzo racing.com, and info@razoracing.com as well. Now, what made this store so cool? Me and my wife's cousin, we were walking through, and my wife's cousin actually is a big e-bike builder. So he constructs a lot of e-bikes and he sells them for various individuals who wants them. And we were just kind of looking at it, and we went into the store and we were just like, oh my God, like we've never seen anything so extensive. Now we have like a Hobbytown USA here in Richmond that has like an area in the back where you can floor race a lot of smaller RC models, and it had a lot of parts and everything. But this store, Razzo Racing, just took the cake. I've never seen something that was so dedicated to just RC racing. They had models going from like $100 up to like $3,000. And I'm telling you, these were really, really powerful vehicles. Some of them even had gasoline engines where you would actually put gas into the vehicle. And the range on these to operate them were pretty far. And the speed, oh, forget about it. They would be like up to 45 miles an hour, 55 miles an hour. Some of them I think were clocked at around 60 or 70, which is ridiculous. Like for an RC car, it's just amazing. But it was just so cool to see that and just to see all the various options, the tools, the parts, just the detail, all the vehicle plates that you could kind of transition in and out of various vehicles. They had like Japanese, old school Japanese cars from like the STR Skyline. They had the Nissan, not the Nissan, the Toyota, old school Celica, the Corollas. I mean, just nostalgic vehicles. Some of them they had like the older body style Chevy trucks and Broncos, Ford Broncos. It was just amazing. So if you're into RC cars and you are a really big fan of being able to kind of build them and kind of do it yourself, check out razorracing.com. I'm telling you, they are the place to be. And they are not only just in North Carolina, they've got connections worldwide. And they've also got connections with Kyosho, which is another radio controlled setup that's set up all around the world. I actually picked up one of the magazine's catalogs for a lot of the various vehicles and things, and they gave this to me for free. So I told them, like I said, I would drop them on my podcast here. So I hope you guys will check them out. Tell them the car guy sent you, please. If you're interested, go check them out. It's definitely worth the time. All right. Now, we're going to go ahead and jump to our drop a dime segment. So this one came up earlier in the week. Actually involved my beautiful wife. So she got a tune up on her 2018 Genesis G80. And I remember she was telling me what she was getting done, and we keep records of all the services that we do on our vehicles, just so we know what to do next and just have documentation of it, right? But I remember she was telling me that she did everything except the balance on her vehicle. And I remember after she got our vehicle back, she said it just didn't feel right and she felt like it was necessary to go back and do the balance. Well, fortunately, she's got a relationship with a discount tire where she purchased her vehicles, excuse me, her tires, and they were able to do a balance for free. So she got that done and her vehicle came back fine and is riding very well. I remember when I was testing it out for, I couldn't really feel anything, but like my wife and like, all the car guy faithful, your vehicle, right? And if you feel something that's not quite right, you always want to make sure you take care of it, right? So my wife is just like that. She just wants to make sure her vehicle is running right and proper and she doesn't have to worry about anything. So we got that taken care of. So what brings me up with this for the drop a dime segment is talking about how to service your tires. And, we talk about oil changes, we talk about, tune ups, we talk about making sure we put the right gasoline in the vehicle, fuel treatments, and of course, fuel injectors, and all those different things. But I don't know if we really truly understand how to service tires and what that looks like. So I figured we could take some time to kind of research that and figure out what that's like. So one of the things that I remember talking about in a lot of my segments, and especially on my Car Guys process to a purchase, when you're looking at servicing your vehicle and taking care of your tires, it's always recommended at least every other oil change to do a rotation, alignment, and balance. Now, I'm going to go in a little bit of depth of what that looks like and what's all involved with that, and kind of give you some instructions on what to kind of look for. So, first thing we're going to do, we're going to talk about the tire rotation. Now, why is tire rotation important? Well, it's very important because you want to extend the tread life of your tires. You also want to make sure that they are not only wearing evenly, but they're also not causing any other issues going down the road. So, like anything else, when you're rotating or you're realigning, you want to make sure it's not only done properly, but you want to make sure that you're getting the best use out of your tires so that you don't go through them quickly or have to replace them too soon. So I did some research and I found out there are four different ways of doing tire rotations. And this is based upon the drivetrain of your vehicle. And what I mean by that is whether it's a front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, or all wheel drive. So I did some research online and I wanted to present to the Car Guy Faithful today what it looks like when you're doing tire rotations. Okay. So I'm going to hold this up here. Hopefully we can see this pretty well. So the first one we have is what we call the front wheel drive alignment. That's number one right here. Now, for a front wheel drive tire rotation, the front tires, as you can see in the diagram, they're going to be rotated back directly down from the front to the rear. Okay. Now, that's important because you want to make sure you maintain the wear properly because front wheel drive, meaning it means that the controls and the turning are at the front and the tire, not the turning, but the actual power is going to the front of the tires. And these are the tires that you want to make sure that have the best wear and the best tread. Now, with the front wheel drive, like I said, the front tires just automatically rotate straight back to the rear, and the rear tires crisscross to the front. Now, why that's important is because with this particular setup, you want to make sure that the rear tires are going to the front, have the best control with respect to controlling the front, mind you. So what that basically means, when you are front wheel drive, all the power and the turning is going up front, and you're able to control it better. With rear wheel drive is what we're about to go over with in just a second. All the power is coming from the rear tires. Now, what's important about that and why you see more front wheel drive vehicles out in the market now than rear wheel is because of control. It was found over the years that rear wheel cars without traction control have a tendency to kind of lose control in various situations, especially with ice, wet conditions, and things like that. If you've ever heard of a vehicle fishtailing, that means it's doing this out of control and you're losing control. So that's why you see a lot of front wheel drive vehicles in the market now. So that helps you to maintain control. Now, one of the things I remember learning at Honda when I first started working there was about vehicle traction control. So the traction control, regardless of its front or wheel, it would help your wheels stay supplanted regardless of what was going on in the environment. So you'd have more control going around turns and not losing your car. So let's talk about the rear wheel drive now. So rear wheel drive, this is option two here. What happens is the rear tires are going to rotate vertically to the front, just straight from rear to front, just like that. And the front tires are going to crisscross to the back. So this gives you a better tread wear for the rear tires because that's where the power and the actual acceleration is coming from the rear tires. Okay. Now, we've been introduced to all-wheel drive over the past 10 to 15 years, and all-wheel drive, once again, guys, is all four tires spinning at the same time. Vehicles like this are going to be like the Audis, the Mercedes-Benz, the Blue Tech, the X-Drive BMWs, Subaru, all of their vehicles are all-wheel drive. There are other certain vehicles that do what they call like an all-wheel selective drive, which means they may run front wheel drive until it senses it needs to self engage, that kind of thing. So, all wheel drive vehicles, because all the tires are spinning all the time and the power is going to all four of the tires, they're going to be crisscrossed across. Okay. So whenever you're getting your tires rotated or changed on an all-wheel drive vehicle, they will be crisscrossed. So from the front right to the rear left, and from the front left to the rear right, basically. Okay. And that's kind of how that works for the rotation. Now, there are exceptions to this, and this is based on the types of tires. So I looked this one up too because I was curious about this one. Tires with directional tread pattern basically are swapped from front to back evenly. They're just reversed in order. And tires like these are for vehicles that include high performance cars, luxury sedans, sports sedans, vehicles that have winter tires or all season or performance tires, as well as vehicles in wet or snowy climates. So, a snowy climate that I can think of right off the top is from a place where my mom is from, born and raised, which is Buffalo. Now, you can imagine Buffalo, they see snow like they see like they see days on the week. They see snow all the time. Snow is nothing to Buffalo. Okay. So any tires that are up in Buffalo, more than likely they're going to be winter tires to kind of prepare them for the long season of consistent snow. So conditions like that would see tires with the directional trace pattern to kind of help them with traction and other things. Okay. So that's pretty much it for the rotation. Now let's talk about the second one when we're talking about a vehicle alignment. Now, when we are aligning the wheels or the tires of a vehicle, we're trying to make sure that the vehicle is going to consistently go straight on an even pattern road. Now, what I mean by that is, and we all know some roads that aren't necessarily even patterned, be it the street or the highways. Not all roads are created equal, right? But what you want to do with an alignment is you want to make sure, and just so you'll know what alignment means, is with little resistance to the steering wheel, your vehicle is not pulling either way without you turning. Okay. Now, if you've never seen or heard of an alignment, if you've ever driven a vehicle and you feel like it's pulling like this with very little resistance or this, your vehicle has a misalignment or needs to be aligned. And how that is done is particularly at your local service shop. They will put it on a rack and they will kind of go through and make sure it's balanced and equal so that your vehicle doesn't pull when it's going at a constant rate of speed. Okay, so that's what's involved in alignment. The last one is a tire balance. Now, this one is very interesting. For those of you who've never had the experience of being in a service shop or seeing how it's done, tires or wheels are balanced based upon adding little metal weights within the rim of the wheel. Now, these little metal weights are based on various sizes and shapes and can be broken apart or manipulated to meet that specific balance type, but they're put in on the inside of the wheel rim. So if you've ever cleaned the inside of the wheel and you see like these little stacks of little square or like little cylinder like metal pieces, looks like they're just particular cut in a certain way, those are the weights that are used to balance your tires. Now, why is balancing so important? So if you've ever been on the road and you're hearing like a whoop 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 sound, or if when you're braking it feels like the wheels are doing this, sometimes that can involve a lack of a balance. Okay. In my wife's example, when she got a balance with her G80, she could just feel that it was just slightly off. She was feeling something that, most people probably wouldn't notice, but most people who drive their cars on a daily basis, they're going to notice what feels right and what doesn't feel right. And with a balance, what they do is they add these weights on the inside rim of the vehicle to make sure that revolution or that turn of the wheel is going to be perfect so you don't feel that vibration or that lack of symmetry with the drive of your vehicle. And they add these little weights in to get to what they call a zeroed out balance. So if you've ever seen the inside of a shop and you see these numbers going up plus and minus and they're trying to figure out what's going to go, that's part of balancing. And what they're doing is they're trying to get it to where it's just balanced out to as close to zero or zeroed out if they can get it. And that reduces the tire tread and the wear and tear on the tires, and just the noise and the vibration and the friction that's caused. So all three of those are integral in making sure your tire maximizes its overall use and lifespan. Okay, so when you go and do a tire rotation, alignment, and balance, make sure you're doing that at least at every other oil change, depending on the amount of miles you're driving. For typical vehicles that do like a 5,000-mile oil change, I say every other, just safely. But for those that go a little bit longer, I think it's a good idea to do it on every oil change, just so you extend the life of the tires. Make sense? All right, guys. So that does it for the Drop a Dime segment today. So, a couple of announcements. I did tell y'all about the YouTube refreshment and everything. I've got some ideas that I'm going to do to increase the subscription side of it and the viewership of the YouTube page. So, I can't wait to put those into effect. It's going to take maybe about a few weeks to a month to really implement the strategies that I'm going to do. But for those of you who have been so um, integral and putting together and building up my subscription base for the whole car guy regime. I appreciate you sharing this with everyone, but continue to do that for me, okay? As I continue this reach and make this thing go viral and global and the whole 9 yards, I definitely want and need your support and help. And I just want to tell you, thank you in advance for that, okay? So can't wait to see the effects of that, and hopefully we can see this population grow like gangbusters, all right? So looking forward to that as well. So at any rate, guys, we're gonna go ahead and get ready to sign off. I'm gonna go enjoy the rest of this Saturday. Just want to tell y'all, once again, the homework assignment: share this with 5 other people, and for those that have been shared, share this with 5 other people so we can continue to get this growing and going. Okay. Now, I just want to say one more time that this is our thing, this thing of ours, and it's just important that everybody knows that everyone is welcome from all levels of understanding about cars. Doesn't matter if you're a 30-year mechanic or you're just someone that would just love to learn about cars and don't know where to begin. All is welcome. Come on, come all. Let's learn together. All right. So let's go ahead and sign off for today. I appreciate you guys riding with me. Want to say praise God because He always has got the wheel. And though we may not always agree, it's important that we show respect. So stay up. I'll see you guys on the road.